This is Jason Clemmons from the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and you are listening to Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is Monday, September 25th, and we are coming to you live from the studios at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. And we are excited to be here, like always. And we got a great show for you tonight. We're going to get deeper into exercise and some ideas about exercise and what exercise could do for us and how it can make us better. And so we had a good week last week. We had a couple of just some technical difficulties that kind of set our show back just a touch. We got all those worked out. The guys at the studio are really working hard to make sure all that stuff is great. The thing about that what we're doing is we got people that are working that do a lot of volunteer work and they donate their time to make this happen. And so sometimes when it goes wrong, we got to scramble just a little bit, but those guys have done a great job. I believe we're back on track tonight. I believe we're back on the radio. I think everybody can hear us out there. If you can, I guess I'll find out here shortly, but I think everything is going well. And so we're glad to be back here and coming to you. It's been great. We had a great weekend this weekend. We had um, some friends in town that were doing a CrossFit competition, and I got to spend a little bit of time with them. They're chiropractors from Roswell, MJ and T. Lewis, some of them are really good friends of mine, and a future chiropractor that's in school in Dallas, and so we got to spend some time with those guys, and it's always great to see them. They push their bodies super hard, and it's really amazing what they can do with themselves. And so anytime you get to watch any of those type of competition or talk to those people, it's very inspiring. And I'd already had this plan to get into exercise this week and kind of carry forward what we did last week with the whole Spark and the ideas that we had with exercise from Spark. And so I thought, man, this is be great to go ahead and take what we learned from last week in the Spark book about how important exercise was, what it does to all the chemistry inside of our brain, how it improves our brain, and then how we can learn from different types of exercise programs. So that's really what the show is going to be about tonight. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions as we're going through it, please send us a text. If you're listening to us, so we're coming live to you on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 Lubbock Christian Nation. So if you guys are listening there or at 97radio.com or on the Live 365 app and you would like to send us a text, you can send us a text at 806-794-0400, and I would be glad to answer any of your questions. For all of you who are watching us on Facebook Live, X, and on YouTube, you're welcome to send us a message. You can text us as well, and you can send that to us, but you can also send us a message right through Facebook, and we should get it here in the office. So if you have any questions as we're going through the show, or if you have any questions about any of the shows we've done so far, I've had lots of comments over the last few weeks about some of the shows and about some of the things that people are learning. It's really cute. One of the listeners, she said today, she's an awesome patient in our office. She's been part of our fitness program and part of our office for a long time. And she is in our mature ladies class, I should say. But she told me today, she said, I think my friends are getting tired of me saying that my chiropractor said something. And we just laughed because I know that's like, you just want to share the information that you're getting so that people can be healthier. And a lot of the stuff that you get, some of those people haven't ever heard before. So I know how exciting it can be to share that information. And so she said, so I've decided to just say, instead of saying, this is what my chiropractor said. She said, I'm learning, I'm taking an online course, is I think is the way she described it. So it's really cool. By the time you get finished with all this stuff, you should have your doctorate in wellness. You should be able to get a certificate. We'll print you up one here. If you see enough shows, maybe we'll print you up a certificate and give you your doctorate in wellness as you've gone along with this. And you can take that and maybe you can make the world a better place, right? That's what That's what it'd all be about if you got your doctorate in wellness. So I hope you're learning something. I know that I'm getting feedback from patients about things that they're hearing us say. Even our kid that's in chiropractic school, he made a comment about some of the stuff that he's listening to, and so I know he's super busy and studying, and he told me his schedule that he has and all the stuff that he's doing right now. So I remembered those days of trying one in chiropractic school and biochemistry and anatomy and all the things that he's going through, and so for him to have a chance to watch the show. And we've got one of our future chiropractors that's going to be in our office at some point after she graduates from chiropractic school. I know she listens to the show too. So I'm glad we've got patients that are listening to it. We got people that I don't even know that are listening to it, listen to it. So if there's anything I can help you with, if you've got a question and you want to text me, send me a text, or if you want to send me some information through Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and we'll see if we can answer any of those questions for you as we're working through some of this. So, I started my athletic career at birth, and my dad was a high school coach. My mom was an elementary school teacher, and I think I went to my first football game when I was about 2 weeks old. I was born in October, and I think I got a football on the day I was born, actually, as a gift. So athletics has been a huge part of my life for my entire life, and the thing about the thing that I've learned as I've gone through life is that at different stages of life, our exercise program ought to be geared differently. As a young person, we were going through athletics. When we were I remember first grade, we just used to run sprints all the time. And we were fit as heck. First grade, second grade, third grade, we were super fit. We could go all day long. We could run all day long. We just did lots of running back in the day. And as we moved up into junior high and high school, then we started this training program that moved us into gladiators in the arena, right? That's the way they trained us all through high school and through college, because really that's what sports is to a certain extent. We are the gladiators in the arena. That's what we do on Saturday afternoons at Jones Stadium. We fill the stadium up, and then that's part of it. Everybody comes to the stadium to see the gladiators fight. But what they didn't explain to us when we graduated, what they did a really poor job of doing for us when we graduated, was they didn't explain to us how to transition ourselves into a wellness model of exercise. And if you weren't in athletics growing up and you came to exercise later in life, you probably came to it in a much different way, right? So you might have started playing golf or somewhere along the way, or maybe you started riding your bike somewhere along the way. Excuse me, or maybe you were into a triathlon or something like that. You started competing, or you wanted to run 5Ks or 10Ks or something like that, right? So you didn't necessarily come into it from a standpoint of being the gladiator in the arena. But those of us in athletics, when we transitioned, when we got finished with athletics, we went through a phase, at least I know I did. I went through a phase where it was training as if I was still a gladiator in the arena. And one thing that they didn't teach me when I was going through that process is they didn't teach me that there wasn't a bunch of old, healthy gladiators running around. I've never read a book or learned anything about the gladiator system and learned exactly who was the gladiators who were the gladiators that were running around back in the day, right? Was there a bunch of 50, 60, 70-year-old healthy gladiators out there? I don't think so. I think those guys were broken down and they weren't functioning properly. And by the time they got to be, they might not even I would really, if anybody out there knows the answer to that question, what the lifespan of a gladiator was, I would love to know that, because I don't think it was very old. And so if you're not going to make it very old, then the way that you train is it's irrelevant, right? It doesn't really make any difference how you train if you're not going to live very long. And so the other thing is when you do transition out of that type of model, one of the questions is, what are you trying to accomplish with your exercise program? Right? What do you want out of it? I had a new patient today, a college student, and she's talking about, her low back bothers her when she squats heavy weights. And I was like, "What's your major?" And she's like, "Energy and land management or something." And I'm like, "What do you want to do with your life?" And she's like, I want to be some corporate. I want to work in corporate land managing or energy of some sort with a big energy company." And I was like, in thinking in my brain, well, why do we need heavy squats? Right? What is the point of a super heavy squat? Now, I know I'm going to make my CrossFit people mad when I talk about that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do squats. I'm just saying that I think it's very important to define exactly what your exercise program should be. Like, I think it would help if we could really break down and define what we expect out of an exercise program and what are we trying to accomplish through the exercise program. And what are we measuring, or what are the outcome measurements that says, hey, this exercise program is working for us or not? And so I think it's very important, depending on where you are in life. If you're a young 20-year-old, maybe you're trying to get fit and get a partner and all that sort of thing in life. And so the body physique is all super important to you, and that's what you're going for, right? But if you're 30, 40-year-old, maybe you've gone through your early stages, you've gained a little weight, you're not exactly in the shape that you used to be in when you were young, and now you want to do something that's totally different. And maybe that's a different model that you're trying to get into, right? Maybe you need to watch your diet. Maybe you need to work on a few things that may be different from someone that's younger than you are. And I know for me at 52, the sweet spot for us is like, hey, look, what I'm doing on a daily basis needs to keep me healthy, needs to keep my brain healthy, needs to keep my joints healthy, needs to keep my body functioning at a high level. And I'm not trying to be a poster boy of any kind when it comes to my physique or anything like that. And I know some guys are at my age, but what I'm trying to do is be the healthiest person I could be and make sure that I can do my chiropractic work and my teaching and the things that we do here in the office to help lives better. That's my goal. And I want to do it until I'm 113 years old. And so I've been trying to figure out here in the last few years exactly what an exercise program would be for me that would keep me on the long haul. I want to be able to do this. I'm 52, so but I've got 61 more years, puts me at 113. So for the next 61 years, what do I want to do with my exercise and fitness? And that's the kind of goal that I'm looking for. So as I have moved through this process, last week with Spark, we talked about 4 days a week for 30 minutes aerobic exercise. And there's science. There's lots of science to back up that can help you be healthier, right? That can help you function better. That can help you with anxiety and depression and Alzheimer's and all those things that go along with that. And that's perfectly fine. And that is a way that you can do that. The science that goes along with that is a little bit hard to do when you're working with rats, as Dr. Rady said last week, because it's hard to get rats to lift weights, right? But one thing that I've noticed probably for the last 9 or 10 years is that when I look at athletes and I evaluate athletes' physique, men and women both, I have not seen in my lifetime anybody that looks better than CrossFitters. And I've been saying this now for 4, 5, 6 years, that you can tell a person when a person walks into the room and they're doing CrossFit, you could just tell they're CrossFitters. Their physique looks balanced. If you see a guy that's really into weightlifting or that does a lot of strength, like bodybuilding type stuff, a lot of times what you see is this big giant upper body and these little bitty skinny legs. And because they don't like to do leg day like they like to do upper body day, right? Well, the CrossFitters don't look that way. The CrossFitters look balanced all the way through. And so in 2019, I finally gave in to this idea of of because I was kind of what I would see in my office was the competitive spirit of the CrossFit group and the injuries that went along with CrossFit. So I would see the shoulders and the low backs and the things that were going along, and I would see, man, like it seems like this is a dangerous kind of program. And so for the first 4 or 5 or 6 years, when I was analyzing CrossFit, I was analyzing it and I was thinking, this is not great. Like I just I don't think this is the best model to do because I don't understand why you would load your shoulders the way that they do, or why you would load your low back the way they do, and why would anybody do deadlifts? And and so one day I was listening when I finally I hit a turning point in my life. I hit a threshold in my life because I went to my 30-year high school reunion. And when I did, I had the weirdest reactions. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show or not, but I had the weirdest reactions with my classmates from my 30-year high school reunion. And I thought to myself, this is so strange. Like I know all these people, but they're they're looking at me and this is such a weird interaction. Like I had a guy that I'd known since 7th grade just introduce himself to me. And I was like, we went to school from 7th grade through high school. Like we were in a lot of the same classes as we were going through high school. And you are friends with my wife. You've been friends with my wife since 7th grade as well. Like, how do I not know who you are? It was just really bizarre. And then we had a dinner with a that we were out this little Mexican food place out on the patio, and we were all sitting out there, and it was just strange. We had a mix with the other high school from Roswell, and some of the guys were there and gals were there, I just kept getting these strange interactions with people. And then when I got home, I saw pictures of myself. And at the time, I was 283 pounds. And I was very unhealthy. And I was 49 years old, fixing to be 49 years old. And I just started thinking to myself, man, you are the statistic of a heart attack. You are the guy. Because I had one of my really good friends from Roswell, his brother passed away. His brother was a volunteer fireman and had a heart attack in the fire department he was trying to put his jacket on. It was in the winter and he had one arm in his jacket and he didn't even get his other arm in the jacket when he had a heart attack and died right there. And he was about 300 pounds. And he was probably in his 40s maybe. And so he might have been close to 50, but I don't remember exactly how old he was, but I just remember thinking, yeah, he's a 300-pound guy. That's what happens. And then when I went to that reunion, I saw those pictures of myself. It was astonishing to me. Like, and I'm not afraid to talk about it either, because it was literally astonishing to me. I could not believe how out of shape I had gotten myself. And I graduated when we played in the Sun Bowl in 1993. My senior year at Tech. And in 1993, like when I left the Sun Bowl, I was 198 pounds. And so from the Sun Bowl at 198 pounds in 1993 to 2019, my 30-year high school reunion, like I'd gained almost 100 pounds. And I was 17 pounds away from being 300 pounds. And you could see the pictures. You could see the inflammation in my face. You could see the danger that I had gotten myself in. And I was like, dude, you know how close you are to being that guy? Like, you know how close you are to like being the guy that just has a heart attack and dies right there at your office? And so I had some CrossFit people that were in my office that to this day, I will always have a place in my heart for them and the things that they did to help me. Because I remember that first day, I called them on the phone and said, hey, look, I've got to do something with my body. I've got to do something with my health. And so I called him up and I said, look, I'm ready to start. Can you help me? And she's like, sure. And I've been taking care of them for 6 years. And so when I finally got to that point where I called them I remember that first day I went over there to that workout, and I literally cried. I think I might have mentioned this on the show a couple of weeks ago, but I like had tears in my eyes because two things that were happening. Number one, I thought I was going to die, and number two, I didn't like. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do any. I was so embarrassed about where I was, right? And so what I did is I just decided what I was going to do is I was going to take all of that energy and I was going to bundle all of that negative energy and all that fear and all that worry, and I was going to bundle it up into one big ball of energy, and I was just going to push it forward and say, look, I will show up and I'll just do whatever you tell me to do. Just please don't hurt me because I got to go to work and I got to make sure that I can make a living, right? And so she was fabulous. She was trained. She was a trainer. She was trained at what she was doing. She was super great in what she was doing. So she started me off at the levels that I could start off at. And what happened to me is I wanted to know more about CrossFit, and I wanted to know who this guy who started CrossFit. What's the foundational premise of CrossFit? Where did those guys come up with this whole idea? And so I started studying that, and I started studying this guy named Greg Glassman. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Greg Glassman or not, but he's the founder of CrossFit. He's the one that started CrossFit. And Greg he's a California guy. He grew up outside of Los Angeles. I believe his birthday was July of 1956. And his dad was a rocket scientist at Hughes Aircraft who always preached the importance of math and science to his son. So Greg was a very measurable kind of guy. Like his dad didn't let him slide on any of that stuff. He told one story about how his dad made him go to the hardware store and buy like a whole bag full of nails or something and come back and measure and weigh each one of those nails. And they were supposed to be identical. But he went in and he said, look, I'm going to make you measure them all. And what he found out, if you measure them tightly enough, is that they're not identical, right? They're little. If you measure them in a small enough scale, you will find out that they're just a little bit longer than each other or shorter than each other. They weigh different from each other. And so Greg was one of those guys that was very structured and very measurable in his approach. And he got into gymnastics. He grew up in a town where they had I think the gold medalist in like the 1968 Olympics was from that town, wherever he was, outside of Los Angeles. And so, excuse me. And so everybody in town wanted to be a gymnast. They all thought, hey, this is something that I want to do. And so he got into that. He started getting into training. College wasn't his thing. He didn't really like that whole method of learning, or he calls himself a libertarian, whatever. And he got into to training people in the gym. And so he went into the gym and he started looking at this and he started saying to himself, this is not the proper way to do this. Because it was Gold's Gym, and it was back in the, I don't know, 80s or 70s or something like that. And he was starting to learn, he was seeing all this weightlifting stuff that was going on. And he was like, the strongest people that I know of are gymnasts, and they can do fingertip push-up and they can do all kinds of things. And none of them look like this. And they could do this. It was just like body weight stuff, but you don't see a gymnast just standing in front of a mirror doing curls, right? So he created this program called CrossFit. He created this methodology called CrossFit. And the more I studied it, the more I thought it was fabulous. Like I was just eaten up with the science and the methodology of CrossFit. And I don't know anything. I mean, there's stuff that goes on with Greg Glassman, and he ended up getting run out of CrossFit, and he said some things that he shouldn't have said. And I don't know anything about him personally. I don't really care. I'd love to meet him. I'd love to talk to him. I'd love to take him to lunch someday. But I want to learn from him, so I don't get caught up in the personal part of whatever might be his issue or whatever, right? But I just want to make sure that I can learn as much as I can. So I started watching videos. I started watching YouTube of him, and he started talking about health, and he started breaking down health, and what he started giving a definition of health that I thought was really strong. And so we're fixing to come up on a break on the radio, and so I want to as when we get back from this break, I want to talk about exactly what that means, his definition of health, and build you a program that you can take with you so that you can start working out. If you need a workout program, that you can start doing some things that might help you in your workout program. So because I think if you understand, number one, define what it is you're trying to accomplish. What do you want to do with your health? What do you want to do with your body? What is your body being asked to do on a daily basis? And figure out exactly what you're trying to accomplish with your health, and then start to implement some of those things into your daily life, and you will see amazing results over a period of time. There's no question whatsoever, and it doesn't matter how old you are, and it doesn't matter what shape you're in. It's 100% doable. You can start, and you can start moving yourself forward. If you're 30 years old, you're 40 years old, you're out of shape, don't worry about it. We'll teach you some of the methods that right after the break, and then you can make your life better. So we'll be right back. Yeah, and so for our Facebook group, so I really started studying. I really started studying um, Greg's stuff, and I started listening to him talk about fitness, and I started listening to him talk about the definition of health, and I started listening to him talk about how you can make better lives better. And I used to watch a lot. I used to watch The Biggest Loser, and I used to listen to Bob Harper on The Biggest Loser, and that TV show was a little bit deceptive, and it was doing some things with some people that were very disappointing. But the 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 idea of taking a person and helping them be healthier, like with exercise, like I'm not 100% sure that the athletic trainer, the not the athletic trainers, the trainers, the physical fitness trainers of the world, the CrossFit trainers of the world, I'm not actually sure that they're not better doctors than we are, or doctors are, right? If you had an unhealthy person and you had to get them healthy, and you took them to a doctor, what would they do for them? They might give them a pamphlet on nutrition. They might talk to them a touch about nutrition. They might get them a piece of paper or something about exercise, right? But their main thing is they're going to give them some sort of pharmaceutical to deal with all of their metabolic processes that are failing them because they're so out of shape, right? But if you go to a fitness trainer or a CrossFit gym or someone that really knows what they're doing, and you got to be careful wherever you go, you got to be careful. So, but if you were to go to someone like that and they were to get you in shape, well, they would do the two main things that they would start working on you with is number one, your exercise program, and number two, your diet, right? And that goes back to our show with Dr. Fraley a couple Tuesdays ago when we talked about fuel and fuel delivery and activation, right? What is the fuel that you're putting in your body? Well, that's what a trainer is going to do for you. A trainer is going to start talking to you about food and what you should eat and how you maybe should measure that food, and they will get into you and what's called your macros, or where you break down your protein, your fat, and your carbohydrates, and exactly how much of that you should use. And all those things are super important. And so when I watched The Biggest Loser and I watched Bob Harper and those guys on that, the trainers, I wasn't exactly sure that those guys weren't the best trainers that we had. Okay, we're coming back. Okay, everybody, we're back on the show. Thanks. You're listening to Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. And this is Monday, September 25th. We're coming to you from the Rock Health and Wellness Studios, and you're listening to me on 98.7 FM, Walk by Faith. And tonight we're talking about the idea, the methodology of CrossFit, the idea of how you want to set up an exercise program and what those exercise programs are doing to you and for you, right? So so what happened to me was the name of our office is the Rock Health and Wellness Centers, right? And I listened to Greg Glassman talk about his definition of health, and it was really eye opening to me. It was really really interesting because he gave this idea of these of three different types of exercise that you do. And if you were to break down exercise and you were to say, okay, there's one type of exercise, and I don't want to get too technical with it. I know that sounds really funny coming from me. But let's just call it the type one, the type one exercise. And the type one exercise is going to be something that's going to be very intense, and it's going to be very quick, like 10 seconds. Okay, like if you were going to do a 1 rep max on your bench press, you were going to do something that was the most you could do it, and it was super intense, and then it was going to last for about 10 seconds. And then the next one is going to be the second type of energy system that you're going to use when you work out is going to be about a 3-minute exercise program, 2 to 3 minutes, and it's going to peak at 1 minute. And so when you start to go, you're only going to be able to go as hard as you can go for a minute. And then your body is going to start to run out of energy. And that's where we get into what's called aerobic energy and anaerobic energy. And anytime in science and medicine, whenever you put "an" in front of something, what that means, or you put an "a" in front of something, it means without. Okay, so if you're like sleep apnea, right? Like if you put "a" in front of something, it's like I can't breathe. It's without breathing. And so whenever you've got aerobic or anaerobic, that anaerobic means you're doing it without oxygen, and aerobic means you're doing it with oxygen. And that gets into how your cells break down the energy to make that happen. So you've heard of like the car falls on the baby and the mama picks the car up off the baby, right? You've heard that before. Well, she's using that very first energy system that has storage in the cell. It has storage in the muscle. It's going on in the cytosol of the muscle that's inside the muscle cell, and it's using the energy that's already there. It's using the materials that are already there for this quick, intense burst of energy, right? But then, and that doesn't have anything to do with oxygen. Matter of fact, she might hold her breath, right? She's not going to breathe at all. She's just going to lift the car off the baby quickly. It's going to be a maximum output. It's going to last for 10 seconds, and then it's going to be done. Okay, the second one is going to be all out, but it's only going to last for about 120 to that's 2 minutes to 3 minutes of time, but it's going to max out at 1 minute. And then the last system is going to just go, it's going to be able to go for long periods of time. And so that's when you go for a run, like you're going to get on the treadmill and go for a walk. It's usually a lower intensity, like low to moderate intensity, and you can usually carry on a conversation while you're doing it. So that third energy system is our aerobic system. So if you get on the treadmill at the gym and you go for a walk on the treadmill, you can pretty much carry on a conversation with the person next to you for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. Like you could just keep walking and keep walking and keep walking, and you'd never run out of breath. And that's kind of your third energy system right there, right? And so what Greg Glassman was talking about when he was breaking down CrossFit to me is he was saying if we were to take a hopper and we, like you are doing a raffle, and you were to break down all of that, and you were to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to throw in every exercise that I can throw inside this system, and and I'm gonna there might be a bench press, there might be a 400-meter run, there might be 25 push-ups, there might be a 100-meter dash, there might be a marathon, whatever, right? You would have all of these different models. You'd have all these different these outcomes that are happening right there, right? So you'd be able to measure that. You'd be able to measure if you picked out 100 exercises, you would get data points, and you did all those data points. Like you would have some level 1 energy systems, some level 2 energy systems, and some level 3 energy systems, and you would be able to measure exactly what is your 1 rep max on the bench, what is your 400-meter run time, what is your whatever you wanted to measure, right? What is your 5K run? And what you would do is, if you put all those on a graph and you graphed all that out, and then you were to kind of draw a line through the middle of all that, and then you were to color the area underneath that, and that's what's called the area under the curve, that's what would be defined as fitness. And so fitness is basically the area under the curve in the CrossFit world from all three of those energy systems. So if you were to go in there and measure any of those things you wanted to measure, then you'd be able to get yourself a level of measurable fitness. And that measurable fitness would be exactly how you were to you could measure that, right? And then you could put yourself through an exercise program, and that exercise program over a period of time would hopefully increase your level under your curve, right? So if you went back and you retested yourself on all of those same exercises that you had done before, then hopefully your 1 rep max on your bench press would be more, and maybe you could do more reps doing something, or maybe you could run your race faster, or whatever it might be, and all of those things would start to increase. And then when you went back and you measured the dots there and you drew the line, what would happen is you would see an increased area under the curve, and that would prove to you that your fitness had improved. And then if you took that same graph and came off on the edge of it and made it a 3D type of thing, and then you measured that over time, and you measured the area under the curve over time, that was health. And so when I listened to Greg Glassman explain that, I thought that was just a fabulous idea. I just thought that was like, wow, that is something we could actually measure in our office. We could actually measure someone's health over time, and we could have that. And so I thought to myself, if I take the Rock Health and Wellness Centers and I plug that in, I just take that model and I plug it in there, then it might, I was like, would my model hold up in my office? And so that's what I did. I plugged it in, and my model in my office didn't hold up. And so what I ended up with was having to change my model of my office to represent health in a more CrossFit style way from the philosophical foundation of CrossFit. And it may be one of the best things I've ever done when it comes into health, because now, like, we have a gym in our office and we teach fitness classes in the morning time, 6, 7, and 8 in the morning. And we've got on Tuesdays and Fridays, we start earlier, and we've got a whole group of ladies that come in and work out. And the things that we're doing are CrossFit foundational things, where our movements, the way that we are setting up our workouts, all of our workouts are based on that model that I'm talking about tonight. Our workouts are based on that model right there. Now, the thing about it is, I'm a 52-year-old father of 2, married to my high school sweetheart, businessman in my town, that I'm not my competition is not in CrossFit. My competition is in life. My competition is in our office. My competition is what we do here and competing with myself, right? What the guys came this weekend for was a CrossFit competition. They're actually trying to train so that they can, it drives their life so that they can do all the things that they want to do in their life, but they're also going to come compete against other people in those realms. And so if you're going to compete in those realms, the things that you might do in your workout program would be totally different than what I'm going to do in our workout program. But the fundamental things that we're going to do are the same. And so we've got 70-year-olds. Like we worked out this morning with four. One of our guys was 80. So I've got an 80-year-old guy, and it's a man and wife, and they're 70 and 77, 78, and 80. And then I think I've got a 75 and a 73-year-old that are in that class. And what did they do this morning? They did dumbbell snatches. They got on the rowing machine and rowed. They did block step-ups, and they carried a medicine ball above their head around laps in our hallway, right? And they're 80 years old, 78 years old in here doing CrossFit workouts. Why are they doing CrossFit workouts? Because as a 52-year-old guy who started in athletics at birth, who's been through Division I athletic training, who has a master's degree in sports administration and a bachelor's degree in exercise and sports science, and who has been exposed to multiple different exercise programs in his lifetime, I have never seen anything better than CrossFit. I've never seen the end result that's better than what a person gets out of CrossFit. So if I was going to choose something, and I really owe a debt of gratitude to Greg Glassman for building this program and for teaching me and for going on YouTube and sharing his life with me in spite of the crap that he had to go through. And some of it was self-inflicted. I get it. But I mean, because he got run out of his own company. I think I said that, but and probably for a good reason. He probably learned from that. But what he did with that model is something that I think it's so impressive to me that I implemented it. Matter of fact, I bought a new building to put a gym inside my office just for that reason, because I think this methodology of exercise is just outstanding. And all those things that Dr. Rady was talking about last week in the book Spark, right? Where you can increase epinephrine, you can increase dopamine, and norepinephrine, and you can increase dopamine, and you can increase serotonin and GABA and glutamate in the brain, right? And brain-derived neurotropic factor, the BDNF, right? That helps your brain function better. You're getting all that stuff when you're getting it when you're getting aerobics, but you're also getting it when you build a program that can go in these spurts. So if you're going to build a program at home, what are some of the things that you could do? Now, look, if you're not healthy and you need to see a doctor before you start an exercise program, please do that. Please be careful with the way that you're functioning. Please be careful with high intensity training. Don't do something that you're not ready to do. Get yourself some help. Let me make sure I'm clear about all that stuff, right? Make sure that you are that you get yourself some help. But one of the things that you could do, one of the things some of the foundational things that I learned from CrossFit is what they call a functional movement. And a functional movement basically is a movement that starts with contraction in your core and moves through the periphery. So you're going to start with, like, you're going to contract your abs and make sure that your core strength is contracted first, and then you're going to move that contraction away from yourself, whether it's from your core down through your feet or whether it's from your core up through your shoulders, right? And there's a complete difference. If you were to just stand there and you were to put weights in your hands, or if wherever you are right now, unless you're driving, don't do it if you're driving, but wherever you are right now, if you're just sitting there and you just put your hands like you're fixing to lift an imaginary weight above your head, and you just press your arms above your head and bring your arms back down. You just press your arms above your head and bring your arms back down. Okay, that's what would be called a shoulder press in CrossFit, right? But what Greg Glassman taught me was, if you will create a little bit of movement, like slight bend in your knees, you take a slight bend in your knees, and then you create that core strength or the core contraction like at your belly button, at your core, and then you have just a slight little dip, and then you push your arms above your head. That's a completely different exercise. It has a completely different caloric output. It has the way you measure, and one of the things he got into was work and force and time and all that sort of thing, right? So the way you measure that is different when you're measuring the outcomes of that movement versus just sitting there and pushing the bar or the weight above your head. If you have a dip and then you push, that's a different movement, because it really becomes a functional movement. And the functional movement not only has the core to periphery contraction, but it also has crossing multiple joints. And so now we've got the entire spine, we got the shoulder, we've got the elbow, we've got the wrist, that are all involved in that whole movement. So that's called a functional movement. So that's one of the things that's addressed whenever you're doing the CrossFit. The other thing is that you're trying to do it in a high intensity level. And one thing about intensity when you're working out in a gym is that whenever you're doing technique, you need to have proper technique so that you don't hurt yourself. But you need to have enough intensity in order to make it work properly. So you gotta increase the intensity. Well, as you increase intensity, you start to break down in form. The faster you go and the harder you go while you're doing some sort of exercise program, the less form that you have while you're doing it. So it's the first time I've ever had anybody explain that to me in the history of my life. When I listen to CrossFitters talk about that one thing, they're like, look, if you're so perfect in your form, you're never going to get enough work done. So it's going to be a battle for you, because you're just worried about being so perfect. You got to make sure you don't hurt yourself, but you got to push yourself with intensity so that you can get some work done. And work is all measured, right? And so that's where you get into the whole intensity thing. So it's high intensity. If you want to do it on a heart rate thing, then you want to get up there in that 85% range. So you do that 220 minus your age. That's what we did last time. That's kind of a target heart rate for you. And then you'd multiply that times 85%. And then that puts you in a high intensity workout range, is when your heart rate's at that level. And so now I've got a 60-year-old guy that he works out and his heart rate gets way above that. But the issue with that is that his fitness level is so awesome that he really is functionally not a 60-year-old guy. He's chronologically a 60-year-old guy, but when he works out like a 25-year-old guy, because his heart rate's in the range of a 25-year-old guy instead of being in the range of a 60-year-old guy, right? So it's kind of relative to the person that you are. But CrossFit's whole foundational model is constantly varied, high intensity functional movements, right? And the constantly varied one means we're not going to reproduce the same thing every day. We're going to try to change the workout every single day. We're going to try to do something that mixes it up. So if you're going to build something for yourself, you can build that first energy system that's super quick, that's 10 seconds, right? You can build that second energy system that's the 3-minute peak at 1 minute. So if you try to go as hard as you can go, if you just took off running and you just went as hard as you can go, or if you try to do sit-ups as fast as you could do them over and over, or if it didn't matter, whatever exercise you wanted to pick, like you got on an exercise bike and you wanted to go hard as you could go, you are not gonna go much more than a minute. You're probably gonna go about 45 seconds, maybe, to right at a minute. Like, if you look at quarter milers in track, a good quarter miler, like, is in the mid 40s and high 40s. I mean, that's world class quarter milers, right? Like, it's 48, 49 seconds. You're moving pretty dang fast right there. But an 800-meter guy doesn't sprint an 800 meters. It's not a full out 800 meters. You don't see an 80-second 800 meters. That first part of it, because and the reason for that is that the energy systems have to change. You don't see a miler running a 48 400. Not I mean, that's extremely fast, right? So this energy system, this second energy system, is going to last for about 3 minutes. And it's going to peak at 1 minute. And then that last energy system is going to be able to go for long periods of time. Well, if you wanted to build yourself an at-home workout program, now be careful, make sure you're safe with all this. But one of the things you could do is you could set that 3-minute energy system, do something that lasts about 3 minutes. So I think last week we had it mapped out perfectly. We did rowing for like a minute and a half, and then we did 12 setups and 12 ring lat pulls. And there might have been one other thing, but I think that was it right there. And that ended up being exactly 3 minutes. Like, it was perfectly scheduled. I can go back and look right quick. It was perfectly scheduled what we did, because it really was exactly on that model right there. Yeah, it was med ball slam. So we rowed for a minute and 30 on the rowing machine. You could do a bike, you can do an exercise bike if you want. And then we did 12 med ball slams where we just took a medicine ball and just slammed it to the ground. You got to be careful with how you move your body. 12 push-ups and 12 ring lat pulls. And that was almost to the second a 3-minute workout. Some of us did it just a little bit faster, some of us did it just a little bit slower, but that was perfect. And so what we did was just did that for 20 minutes. So I think we ended up with 4 or 5 rounds of that. So that's how simple you can create an exercise program for yourself at home, is just simply by doing something like that. You could find something that makes your body move for 3 minutes. And anything you do at home, you could sit down and stand up in a chair. You could do squats into a chair. And then you could take a can of beans and push it above your head, and then do that 8 to 12 times. Or if you had some hand weights, you could do a 5-pound or a 10-pound, or if you were strong, do a 25 or 30-pound, whatever. And you could do that, do 8 to 12 reps of some sort of movement, and then walk as fast as you can around your house, and do that for a minute and a half. And that will give you about a 3-minute workout. And if you did that 3-minute workout 4 or 5 times, and you did it at a relatively high intensity, so take 220 minus your age, and that'll put you into, and then take 85% of that puts you in a high intensity level. You could do that 4 or 5 times, and you could do that 2 or 3 times a week. And then on the other days, just go for a 30-minute walk. If you did that right there, and then you started watching your nutrition, and go back and watch some of these shows that we do from nutrition, and you started doing that over a period of time, you would be amazed at how healthy you would get over a period of time. Like, I lost 50 pounds from that 30-year reunion until March of the next year. And it was just by eating right and exercising. I didn't have to take any sort of shot. I didn't have to do any sort of stupid stuff. I didn't have to go in some massive detox program, or some sort of detox or fasting program. No, I didn't have to do. I just had to eat meat and vegetables, nuts and berries, a little bit of fruit, and no sugar. And then I had to work out like that. I worked out 3 times a week, and that was it. And then the other days we walked, and we did that. And from August, when I started, until March, I lost 50 pounds. And then, and to this day, I'm still 50 pounds off of where that was in 2019. I went through a little phase in COVID, and that's what got me to quit eating sugar. Now I'm back to that same level, and it's really been great ever since. So I hope that you got something out of this. We're probably going to carry some of this exercise into the week, and then on Wednesday we're going to break down the book The Body by Bill Bryson. It's a fantastic book. It's a lot of fun. I think you guys are going to love it. And we'll do that on Wednesday, and we might carry that a little bit over too, because there's a lot of stuff in that book. So I appreciate you guys. If you have any questions, send us a text. If you have any comments, send us some comments. And otherwise, we will see you guys tomorrow night.